on allyship. So just to go quickly over what the webinar is going to entail, we're going to talk about the definition of allyship, and then a nice introduction into Claire and Axelle. Then we'll go into the commercial relationships on allyship, and then a lovely testimonial by myself and by Eddy. And then we go into more detail on the do's and don'ts of allyship, microaffirmations, and then what you can do as an ally. All right, so I'll leave the floor then to Claire and Axelle.
Thank you very much, Mathy. So yes, this will be like more a conversation, and we are a very small group which will allow all of us to share and make this a collective process, certainly this afternoon. When we decided that we wanted to do this session on allyship, I had to think a little bit for myself what it meant. You will see a bit later when we discuss about definitions. We are not like, I'm not supposed to just mention that I would be like an ally. I just want to be an ally. So I'm somewhere, let's say, on my allyship journey, if I can say so. How did it start? Just in a few, let me just tell you. Well, you know, I started a very long time ago my career. So it was like the end of the 80s, by the way. And after a few months, I get invited by a group of nice colleagues who invite me for business lunch, which was totally unusual for me. And then at that moment, during that lunch, I hear something where I immediately react inside myself. What is this about? It was really an unacceptable racist comment about people with different origins. And I was so surprised because I had just, you know, come from university. I didn't have this experience of these kinds of remarks. I didn't react. And when I was home that night, I really thought, okay, let's make sure I don't have this bad feeling anymore of just staying there and not saying anything. And on that day, I decided for myself that whatever the person, whoever the person would be, I would systematically react. Well, of course, that's when we know that being an ally is a journey. I certainly did a few very poor reactions, like reacting too fast, too strong, sometimes like trying to minimize situations. It even happened to me to minimize the poor attitude of a colleague who was from a different origin, because I thought I needed to be an ally to her before I realized the best way to be an ally is to be also authentic with people. So yeah, in 30 years, I probably took more than 100 coffees with different colleagues who took their time to tell their story, each of the stories being different, and each of the story helping you to start understanding how some colleagues may indeed experience a different career than the experience of a majority. So the isolation, the self-doubts, sometimes the imposter syndrome, the frustrations when management is not seeing the talent. So I'm still on my journey, taking the time and knowing that I'm far from a perfect ally, but still enjoying the journey. That's for me. So Axelle?
Yes, hi, I'm indeed Axelle. I work as a business expert at KBC, indeed, as it is shown on the screen, and I'm also active as a co-chair in MNF. When it comes down to my career, I don't have as much experience as Claire has, but when it comes down to allyship, allyship kind of, I saw the light regarding allyship, if I can put it that way, when I was joining MNF. In the beginning, we were asked as members of MNF by Mathy to write a portraits that are still up on the website, just kind of to explain who we are, who are the people behind MNF that put in the work. And I reached out to Mathy and I said to her, I don't really know what to write. I don't have any interesting or remarkable biographic thing that I can share here, why I want to join MNF, why I think it's such an important initiative, why I think that there's still a lot of work to do. I just think that it is. And that is actually when Mathy told me, yeah, but still write one anyway, because it is very important to show that we also have allies. And I kind of went on from there. I wrote a story on how I got to know and MNF, etc. So indeed, as Claire has said, being an ally is how they say you don't get to call yourself an ally as someone else does. It's more of a journey. I have absolutely made mistakes myself. For the people that know me, they know that I also have very strong opinions, so I can also come on pretty strong. But I have also learned that in that journey, you can really learn and grow. You just need to commit to always be open to feedback, always willing to learn on different topics, not always think that because people treat you as an ally that you automatically can assume what everything is about. You don't always need to speak up as well. Sometimes people want to speak for themselves. So I definitely agree with Claire on allyship. It is very much a journey. And as long as you are willing to commit to that journey and keep learning, then you're definitely already getting started. I think we can move on then, yes.
Now it's time to work, everyone. Please get your phones. Please go to WooClap and let's answer the questions that will come. Okay, are you all ready? Okay, I think we can go. So, in one word, what does allyship mean to you?
I think a lot of the same words are coming back.
Support, listening, strength, empathy, alliance, advocacy, understanding, alliance, journey, comradeship. Nice.
Trust. Trust is also indeed very big.
Using. Right. Nice. So definitely support, listening, empathy. Strength is also very interesting. So yes, there are several definitions, obviously. What we will propose to you are just elements of definition, and I guess everyone can have their own definition. Allyship means, and before I go even further about this, if you hear ally at first, in which context do we hear ally normally before even we talk about allyship? It's in the context of wars, right? Countries become allies to each other in a war. So that's interesting to keep in mind. I'll come back to that. But a definition we found, which we considered quite accurate, was to say allyship means actively supporting marginalized groups, or rather people of marginalized groups, or people and groups. It means speaking up if needed, defending them when they are not around. And allyship, why would it be so important? Improves collaboration, builds trust, and helps dismantle systemic inequities. In fact, allyship is when you are using your power, your privilege, your position to uplift others. And as we said since the beginning, it is a continuous journey, and it's not to you to define if you are an ally, it's to others to tell you, well, you are truly an ally to us. Don't know if there is any reaction, but yes, we'll immediately just test a little bit the perceptions here of the group on the question, do we really need allies at work? So possible first answer, yes, everyone can be in a situation where they need an ally. Second, no, we are not in a war. And 3, maybe it depends on the situation.
Seems like a unanimous opinion up until now.
Interesting.
I spoke a bit too early.
We should never be unanimous. It's good to have different perspectives.
Absolutely.
And exactly, why did we put that comment? No, we are not in a war. We did have a discussion recently with different colleagues. And one colleague told me that he had heard several other colleagues talking about, yes, but you know, allyship, maybe it's not the right term because it refers to war. Now, of course, the thing is, if we try to change a word which is used universally, it doesn't have a lot of impact. And an ally is certainly being not alone. And somehow that's the way also the word is used also in the war context, right? That countries are not all by themselves. Okay, we can go to the next one. As everyone answered, yes, you have work to do.
So a lot of the things that come up here are definitely the situations that can happen on a daily basis. We'll get into the microaggressions a bit later on. But also, indeed, as it says, stuck in career, needing support, that is not just one situation, of course, that is all the time. Opportunities, indeed. It is very true that we don't only need to be an ally just in specific situations.
Exactly. And maybe we can also say we can be allies when it's going difficultly, but we can also be allies when it's going well.
Yeah.
That in fact, it's really interesting to be an ally at that moment as well.
Of course.
Yeah, conversations behind your back, indeed, also. Good. Well, clearly lots of important moments.
Yep. So when it comes to allyship, I had a not very much of a different opinion, but a lot of stuff that I wanted to add as well. Because when it comes to allyship, I often hear people talking about it in a context where it is regarding colleagues of yours, your managers, etc. And we just saw it in the examples. A lot of the examples that were given were indeed regarding conversations, things you hear to your face, unfortunately, behind your back. That is, of course, the case. A very important side of that topic that I don't often hear being discussed is the commercial relationships. As you saw in the beginning, I am indeed a business expert, so that entails that I not only work with clients with colleagues on a daily basis, but also with clients. And I must say that I do get confronted with microaggressions in those situations as well. I'll get to the content of this slide a bit later on, but to clarify myself and what is being said here, I'll give you a couple of examples. Say, for example, that there's a client that wants to book a meeting for one specific question or an issue, and that's the colleague of mine which has that expertise the meeting is booked with. Say, for example, they have a Turkish background. I confirmed the meeting to that client, and they can pick up on the name and they can hear that that person is from a Turkish background. Say, for example, that that client at that point expresses a microaggression. Can be a microaggression. We'll get to microaggressions and microaffirmations in a bit, but don't hesitate to interrupt if you don't really know what we're talking about. But say you hear a microaggression or just really verbal racism from that client towards your colleague. It could be that the colleague is present or not. But at that point, how do you react as an ally? That is something very important to be aware of. Say, for example, same situation, but the manager just happens to walk by and overhears this conversation. He overhears how the client is already talking about the colleague. How do you expect the manager to react? Do you expect them to react? How do you expect them to react? At what point can a manager actually get to the point where it's a bit of allyship versus the commercial relationship? Do they actually decide this is where we draw the line? We cannot accept this behavior towards our team member. We cannot no longer be involved with you as a client. Where do you draw the line? How you as a colleague or how the manager reacts is very, very important towards the colleague where the microaggression is being expressed to. It can have very huge snowball effects. Another situation that also happens is, say, for example, again, a certain client needs a certain meeting for a specific topic, but this time it's not the colleague with the Turkish background, it is the client itself. Say the client is not around and still you, for example, confirm that meeting to your colleague, and at that point your colleague expresses a microaggression about that client. It could be anything regarding the name, assumptions they make beforehand. You know that they will already head into that meeting with a certain approach. Again, it can have a very, very big snowball effect because you have an impact as an ally on how the client is going to be treated. And then when it comes to that client, say they do overhear it, for the defense of that client, even if it's towards your colleague, how do you react? Because keep in mind, for that client at that point, you are the face of the company that you're working for. That colleague is the face for that company you're working for as well. So as it's being described on the slide here, for that clients at that point, it can be very much a make or break on, do I even want to work with this company? It can be like, as a client, I do not want to be served by this company any longer because I don't feel represented. I don't feel safe. They don't understand me. They don't see me. I'm not being defended. I'm being approached in a way I do not wish to be approached. But also, it could be that the client themselves or someone else that overhears it can definitely have a moment as well. Like, say, for example, they are very talented, very bright, and they are looking for a job. Do you honestly think if they overhear a certain type of a conversation like that, that they would even consider working for a company like that? That, okay, you can say it's just one person for one company, yeah, but if they don't see a safe space that is being created, if they don't see the allyship amongst other people that work there, they will seriously question, would I ever feel safe enough to work for that company? Again, it is about trust in that type of situation. And that's what I'm talking about with the snowball effect. Just one remark, even if it's not amongst colleagues or behind someone else's back, even if it's like between clients, client situations, it can have a very big impact on a lot of the colleagues, on the other clients, potential new colleagues as well, because that is just not an attractive company for them to work at. What I wanted to add with that as well, that's just be aware that not because someone is white presenting that doesn't mean automatically that they're not an ally. It can be for their own motives, their own principles, but also maybe they are white presenting, but for example, they can have a partner, they can have a child, a parent, a sibling, a kindergarten best friends that they grew up with, that, for example, can have a different cultural backgrounds. They can perfectly be an ally. So just like to create a bit awareness that just don't make any assumptions on when you are expressing yourselves. Anyone can be an ally regardless of what you look like, or that doesn't matter. Just be aware in any type of situations, not only colleagues or being as a manager towards your manager, towards clients, but also the other way around. So as I said, that was kind of my example of what is being said here, and the less diversity in staff can lead to attracting less diverse talents on one hand, or losing the clients who do not feel represented. That is a snowball effect I was talking about. Because of the potential colleagues and the potential customers that can either can see themselves there or cannot see themselves. They don't see any representation. They don't see any safety. They don't see any allyship. Therefore, they don't trust the company you're working for.
Indeed. And Axelle, if you allow me, just before giving the floor to Mathy, I wanted also to give an example of how leaders in commercial relationship can really, really play a strong role. Twice I've been the witness of a situation where a senior leader of a commercial entity decided to say, well, look, the attitude of this client was absolutely unacceptable. Now we contact the client very firmly and we say, well, dear client, now you have two options. Or you do apologize to our colleague and you refrain from any remark from now on, or we will have to terminate the relationship. And I think that is, of course, quite a powerful signal for the colleagues. So I suggest that we move.
If I may,
of course,
Claire,
with pleasure.
Because it's of course, and thanks, Axelle, for sharing your view on such an important topic. What I wanted to add, if I may, is it is really complex, especially in a commercial environment where I think we need, when it comes to leaderships, we need to empower them taking such a decision, because let's be honest, several talking about branch managers and so on, or other kind of leadership, they often in a situation where they say, okay, this is it might be a fortunate customer. My values are now this one, but what do I do? So it's important for us to empower them in that. And next to that, it's also, I think, important to, from time to time, to try to understand also such a reaction. Just an example. Myself, being for long years in a senior leadership position in a commercial organization, let's be clear, there's no room from, no matter that it's about, we're talking about a customer or we're talking about a colleague, for such a behavior. Nevertheless, from time to time, you have a situation where it's not black or white. An example, long time ago, I was in a branch, in a banking branch. I think I was in a leadership position. I was in a leadership position at that time, and phone was ringing. Nobody answered. I said, okay, I will answer the phone. I had an old lady on the phone. She was happy because I was, about what she said, the only Flemish-speaking people she were working for this branch. Okay, it was in her first experience. It was in a multicultural environment. She was an old lady born in this neighborhood, grew up in this neighborhood, white old lady, and she said, "Oh, I'm really happy to find once a Flemish guy speaking with me, because things change too fast in your bank. We don't see a white guy anymore. Too much immigrant and all these kind of things, and I'm fed up with that." We were talking, and she had money. She said, "How can I invest that?" Okay, good discussion. Let's make an appointment. Okay, thank you a lot, sir. What's your name? Eddy Mutombo. And I was laughing. Eddy Mutombo. I felt a few seconds. She didn't spoke, and then I really immediately answered. On top of that, I'm sorry, nobody's perfect. And then she started to answer. Okay, so let's meet. We met. We had a really nice contact, a really good contact. And after that, I said, listen, unfortunately, I won't have the time in the future to follow up you closely. But my colleague there, even though he's not he's an immigrant with the immigrant roots, give him a chance. You will see, he's great. We saw each other a few weeks later. He said, indeed, the guy is really great. Thank you for that. So it's a complex topic. It's not always black and white, but we need to be firm. That's sure, and we from time to time also need to deepen more in what could be the source of the problem.
That's a great example. Thank you so much, Eddy. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So, are we moving to Mathy now, maybe? And we'll go back to Eddy in a moment again.
Yes, thank you very much, Claire. Hello, everyone. My name is Mathy, and I'm a diversity and inclusion advisor for Women in Finance, and I also work with Multicultural Network in Finance as well. So I just wanted to share a mini testimonial on a situation where I really felt that I needed allyship. So just to give you a bit of context, a couple of years ago, I used to be part of this youth organization called Isaac. And this organization was really focused on leadership and development of young people. And here I had the pleasure of working with people from all over the world. So I had teammates from Japan, Pakistan, Algeria, Tajikistan, like you name it. I've probably worked with somebody from there. So while working in this diverse environment, I never thought that there would be an issue where I would need an ally. Especially as the president of the Brussels region, I always thought to myself, we have members from all over the world. We all share the same values. We're a global organization, so I'm sure that we'll all be allies to each other. Well, in this one particular situation I faced, it wasn't necessarily the case. So I'll take you back. It was October 2023, and I was brought into an emergency meeting with our board of advisors. So just for a bit of context, we had just had our local elections to elect the next president of the organization, so my successor. But after further review, I mean as the executive board and myself, we had decided that the person that was elected maybe wasn't the best fit just yet. They just needed a bit more time to really grow into their role. So with this, we had made then the executive decision to ask this person to resign from their role. So I thought that I had done everything right. You know, I had a one-on-one meeting with them before I broke it to the team. I wrote a professional email to our members, to any of our stakeholders. And then I also had like an action plan of what we were going to do next. But there was one particular board of advisor who was not happy with how the situation turned out. So I'm very open to feedback and growing and developing as a person. However, the words that came out of his mouth were quite shocking in this moment. He went on to call me a failure of a leader, and the decision that I made was a cowardly decision. In that moment, I really just wanted to cry in the call, but I kind of had to stop myself from doing so, mainly because I also thought, as a Black woman, especially as the only Black woman who was in a leadership position at the time in the organization, I didn't want him to see me as weak because I'd worked really hard to get into that role. Now, as I've grown a bit older, that mindset has changed a little bit. I don't see, being vulnerable as a weakness. However, in that moment, nobody had stood up for me in that call. So not even my direct leader who was there, or my ex-president, my predecessor, who actually inspired me to become president of this organization. And in that particular moment, I felt extremely alone. So after the call, they both did reach out to me and ask how I was, but they used an excuse that particular board of advisor was just like that, and he's just really passionate about the organization, and he's just very straightforward. Then again, it made me feel further isolated because I felt like those words that he said did not represent the values of an organization that I'd spent so much time working in. However, as this call was recorded, my fellow executive board member, this is her right there, who watched the call, and she was really upset about how it happened. She actually came up to my house the next day with some bubble tea and some chocolates to kind of lift up my spirits. But then in that moment, she took out her laptop and she says, okay, I'm going to write an email to this board of advisor because she did not agree with what he had said. One thing, though, that stuck out to me was she said that it was a bit unfair that they had only brought me in this call just to defend myself. They should have at least asked for the rest of the team to be there. But she also said that, she has to use her privilege and her voice not only to help me, but also to amplify my voice as well. In her words, she said, especially since I'm a white passing Belgian, he'll definitely listen to me, but I also need him to listen to you as well. So in that moment, I've never felt more kind of supported in my role, especially coming from my executive board member. So mind you, I was actually her direct leader. So it was really nice to have somebody in my team come to my defense. Honestly, if she had not said anything, I think I probably would have resigned from my position, as again, I felt like I didn't really belong, and my values of the organization and this person in the organization didn't really match anymore. However, that small act of kindness really gave me the strength to push on and kind of remain resilient. And she actually became my successor after that. And we're actually still really good friends to this day. So that's just a little story that I wanted to share, something personal about how I really needed allyship, and I didn't really get what I was expecting, but it turned out for the better at the end. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mathy, for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Right. And then I will give the floor to Eddy to share as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mathy. So I'm really glad to be here today with you to share a small testimonial on allyship, or at least what I'm trying to do to be an ally in a multicultural environment. I think when I think about allyship, I realized that a long time ago, I already felt quite a lot of injustice and frustration when I observed the lack of diversity within the company's organization I was working for. I've been celebrating a few days ago my 25th anniversary within the BNP Paribas Group. So I've been working for 21 years within BNP Paribas Fortis, for a long time within a branch network organization. So that's the period I'm talking about. And when I started preparing my talk for today, and to be honest, that was actually on the plane last night on my way back from a business trip to München, I realized that this topic has been on my mind for really many years. For a long time, I strongly believed that if I wanted to change things, I had to climb the corporate ladder. I thought real impact only could come once I reached the decision-making level. So I fought for it for years to reach that decision-making level. And indeed, the higher I went, the more I was able to act, putting safeguards against unfair recruitment practices, pushing for fairer nominations to key roles, and addressing the lack of diversity within teams. And at the beginning, I was really doing all of this for myself and my own convictions. Then I realized that I was being seen as an ally when a colleague of mine once said she was proud to work for the department I'm heading. She thanked me for showing the way, as she said, and for all my concrete initiatives to transform our company. When I asked her, because I was a bit surprised, frankly speaking, why she said that, she explains that our department today reflects our country, multicultural, with colleagues from many different backgrounds, men and women who feels apparently understood and who have no fear of being discriminated or even held back on in their professional ambition. So she concluded by saying that such a safe environment didn't exist a few years ago, and many of our colleagues do consider me today as an ally. Over time, I came to understand also something which, to me, at least, is essential. Okay, so climbing the hierarchy to have a concrete impact was my way of contributing, but it's not, of course, the only way. Because the truth is that each of us, at no matter at what level, can and I think also must contribute in its own way. So to conclude, I don't think you declare yourself an ally, as we saw in the definition a few minutes ago. It's something other recognizing you through your actions and daily support. That's what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddy. Indeed, I think it's really interesting, and having some people who can really climb the ladder to be stronger allies, that makes a lot of sense indeed.
And of course, don't wait, of course, to start your journey as an ally or try to have an impact. You can also do so while climbing that ladder, but it is very important, not only for allyship, but for representation, etc. That we have allies further up, of course, on those decision-making levels, as Eddy said.
Yes, exactly. So we'll still have some space for taking some other testimonials a bit later in the session, but maybe to explore a little bit the impact of allyship indeed. So as I had told you, we had this discussion with a colleague recently about this notion of, yes, but you know, maybe allies is quite a strong word. It was not in the context of multicultural, it was in the context of gender, saying, well, you know, you hear sometimes the expression male allies, and it may, I mean, everyone should be an ally, so male maybe is not necessary, but the notion of being an ally may seem to people in a position of privilege a bit too strong. But if we see the consequences, and that's just what we want to see, the consequences of what happens when there is nobody to make a change. Yes, Mukan, I see you want to say something.
Yes, indeed. Just for the use of ally, I think the word is good. Certainly, when you look at from a perspective that older people in a marginalized group, they are literally fighting a battle.
Exactly.
And that's not seen that you're fighting a battle towards people, but you're fighting a battle just to be heard and seen. Not saying that the other people that are not part of that marginalized world are literally fighting against you, but you have to fight to be heard. And in that sense, when I look of the need of an ally, you see that when you work in employee resource groups, whether it is in your own company or on a sector level with Weberfin, you always notice that you're all homogeneous in your group, and that people that you actually want that you're fighting, that the people you want them to hear you, they are not part of that ERG. And that's why you are actually fighting yourself to come up, but you need those people to fight with you, to be on your side. Otherwise, yeah, I think the word of ally is can need to be seen also from that perspective, that you're
Very
fighting
true.
a general battle actually.
No, but that's very true. And I think sometimes, yes, that's exactly it.
Sorry.
People, oh, sorry, I did interrupt you maybe?
No, I wanted to mute myself, but I raised my hand.
No, totally fine. But it's true that people tend to not see what the consequences are of this situation. And I think the scheme that we have, the little graph that we have here on the slide is an interesting one. It's showing that maybe some of you remember when we had the session about microaggressions, we shared some data. And indeed, during our survey that we did 4 years ago, okay, time to do it again, that's true, colleagues who auto-defined as from Moroccan origin or from who auto-identified as Black, they were like 2/3 to say, I do hear often racist microaggressions, versus only 1 out of 5 among people who auto-identified as from Belgian origin. So we see it was not even a question of, are you a victim? It was just, are you hearing it? So it's true, we are on the same plateau. We are supposed to hear the same things, but lots of things we do downplay or we don't realize. But you see, microaggressions indeed undermine your power, and your power does impact your behavior. Of course, if you feel like powerless, if you feel like you have lost part of your self-confidence, this immediately changes also how you are perceived. And so sometimes maybe your team or your management will see you as less ambitious, which again, when we asked in our survey how everyone in finance wanted to develop as an expert, we saw that the percentage of employees telling, I want to become an expert in my field, was even higher for people who auto-defined as from Moroccan origin or as Black. So that was very interesting as well. The ambition is there, but the ambition, due to the damage done by these little words or these little attitudes, sometimes is less perceived. And so because of that, there are less opportunities also given. And so when we act as an ally, we can reduce the isolation, we can reduce the risk for more microaggressions by addressing them, by explaining what is wrong with it. We can indeed, especially when we are involved in the promotions processes, for instance, because we are leaders, we can reduce the impact of a slower career, and we can also bring something beneficial to the whole team by promoting positive attitudes and reducing the bias in thinking. So there's a lot when we are allies, it's positive for the individual people who will benefit from this allyship. It will be positive for us. I'll come back on that in a moment, but it's also very positive for the company. It's again a question of maximizing the benefit of all talents. If a talent is blocked 2 levels below the level where they could grow, who is losing the most? The company. I mean, obviously the colleague is losing, but the company is losing a lot. Yes, Axelle.
On the points that you touched, Claire, saying that from the survey, it seems that people presenting from Moroccan descent or backgrounds, or Black presenting people, that they had higher ambitions, that they wanted to gain more expertise in their field, etc. I also wonder if maybe that is linked to people from minority groups, marginalized groups, that they often have to work harder to achieve something, just because of all the microaggressions that they face, etc.
And the biases.
Yeah, and the biases. They are used to working hard, so it seems to me that often that ambition is perceived as ambition. But it's just that they need to work harder regardless if they want to achieve maybe the same thing as the white presenting people want to achieve. But it comes across as they have more ambition, but they just need to work harder. I'm wondering, there's like, if that is related.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I see. So, Mohammed, you want to react?
Yeah, thanks. I want to react on this point indeed. Yeah, you're right, Axelle. I think it's, well, in my experience, I worked already for 32 years in ING in the Netherlands. But I thought it was sort of a generational thing from 30 years ago. But even now, I have like son and nephews actually who are just going into the corporate world. And they even went into traineeship programs, but they feel the same. They have to work harder. To show actually they can do their potential a lot more. But still they are sort of finding struggles actually to get through a traineeship program, which should sort of be established program in any big corporate, right? When you are up there, you should really have a sponsor. You should have a job. You should go easily when you enter into a training. But that's not the case, unfortunately. Even in current times with kids that are actually born here in the Netherlands, they feel fight the struggle and the fight to get into the right job at the right level, considering their education and ambition. So I fully agree.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks a lot. And Eddy wanted to join us.
Yeah, no, I think I wanted to just to say, I think, and I'm quite sure or convinced at least, that ambition has no color. It's more about depending on your color, if I may call it this way, you might have to work twice, 3 times more than a Belgian native people or a Dutch native people or whatever. That's, I think, at least that's my own experience, sharing with several people. But to me, these are facts. Yeah.
And I would even say, because we always try in everything we do here to be a little bit intersectional, that also ambition has no gender.
Yeah.
So, okay. But so maybe, in fact, if we wanted to have a full graph, which would be really reflecting the whole situation, it's not only, of course, the phenomenon of microaggression, but also the large phenomenon of unconscious biases, affinity biases, confirmation biases, stereotypes, which we all have. And up to today, there are still too many leaders who are not aware of this reality of biases that do influence how we evaluate people, on which basis we recruit people, on which basis we promote people, when people want to progress or evolve. I still remember this very first group of employees of different origins we gathered before launching Multicultural Network in Finance. Maybe some of you were already present, and I still remember vividly this comment of colleagues telling me, but Claire, we are ambitious, we want to progress. Lots of them were in the bank since 20 years or 15 years, but they had not evolved. And they said, well, we don't have the codes. And that really stuck with me. We don't have the codes. If you don't have the codes, someone needs to share the codes with you, because obviously otherwise it's a waste of talent, energy, time, money. So definitely something important as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So maybe let's move to the different elements of allyship. And of course, we did cover them already. So we'll just go a little bit through this and through the do's and don'ts. So I would say in my experience, but of course, it's just one type of experience, but the listening part is the biggest one. And fully listening without thinking of how I want to react is just about learning, in fact. And discovering, indeed, as it was said a bit earlier, that every single story is different. You should not think, oh, it's a person of that origin? Then, there are some theories about that, saying, well, in this country or in this culture, that is how people behave and that is how things happen. But it's not at all interesting. What is interesting is the real individual experience of everyone. And you will see patterns, of course, because you will see the same remarks coming or the same issues coming. But still, just listening and understanding, permanently educating oneself. So, definitely did give some compliments in the past at some point, which would today be considered as microaggression. So by the fact that we are learning, that we are listening to examples, that we are listening to the reactions of our colleagues, if they are in a relationship of trust, they will tell us sometimes, well, what you just said, I'm not sure this is what I would like personally. And then you just say, wow, sorry, that's fine. So making time, because if we want to truly listen, that takes time, first of all. And being able to react. And there we always say it's important to not react like we say as a white knight on his white horse, very brave and heroic, saying, well, did you think how painful it could have been for our colleague to hear what you just said? No, it's about your reaction as simple as possible. So when we react in our name. It's much more efficient, it's much more powerful, and it's not possible to contest. If you just share your emotion, it's your emotion. So typically you hear something and you can just say, well, when I just heard you a bit earlier at the coffee machine with this comment you did, well, honestly, I didn't feel comfortable and I wanted you to know this. That's all. That's not ruining your relation. It's still possible for the person to react. Of course, another way to react, and for instance, sometimes you will have a colleague coming, sitting next to you, putting a big sigh like, we can't say anything anymore. Okay, how do you react to that one? Well, first of all, you want to understand what just happened. So maybe a bit like what Eddy explained to us with the client, enter into a dialogue saying, well, what happened to you? You seem to be a bit upset. Tell me. And then maybe the person will say, well, look, I just made that joke and 15 years ago, everyone would laugh. And now someone told me it was not okay. Well, what is still okay nowadays? And then progressively you can enter into a dialogue and explain things. But then there's also another element, and that is especially when you have a certain level of power. We all have a certain level of power, obviously, but the capacity to play this sponsor role, which is crucial and which doesn't happen enough to employees with a different background, that's really key. Being able to advocate about someone, about the skills of this person, and about how this person would fit in the next challenge for them. So these are, I guess, a little bit the main components, but maybe it's interesting now to just check a little bit. If any of you is thinking, I would have added another block and I would have called it this or that, please just raise your hand and tell us. Yes, Mohamed.
I think at least in ING, what I'm a very advocate is sort of a mentorship program. I'm a mentor for a couple of colleagues. It's a really important program actually to have also for non-natives like Dutch or Belgian people, that you sort of establish mentoring programs for people that actually are better integrated into a company or have access to senior leaders or better understand the institute, and to try to guide mentees through their career and help them with things that they face, whether it's in the development or job or also on microaggression or racism at certain points. At least I have some cases the last couple of years actually where people really had very difficult issues, difficult cases, and then you need to, at least you can listen and help them. Maybe you cannot resolve it, but at least to listen and to help where you can help.
Yes, and potentially the very interesting thing about a mentoring program, and by the way, if some of you are interested about the mentoring program, there is a mentoring work stream at Multicultural Network in Finance working on developing a program which would help some colleagues. So definitely reach out to us if you want to join. But of course, a mentor will be a strong ally. So that's a way to say, well, maybe you didn't find allyship until now. Here is an HR process, a transparent HR process to give you an ally. So I think that is very interesting. Of course, it's important that that mentors have been trained somehow, that mentors are wisely selected. But I always find also super interesting in terms of reverse mentoring to when you weave duos between mentors and mentees to try to bridge differences. And for instance, in Belgium, when I can help doing a program, I will try to have as many as possible cases where we mix also Flemish and French speaking mentor and mentees, or men and women, or commercial and not commercial, international, not international. And definitely this is always a way, because the mentoring relationship is about listening and not about talking too much as a mentor. So it's really a great way for the mentor to get reverse mentored and to learn a lot of things. So that's really, really interesting. So maybe we can move to the next slide, which is really, we have put a little bit together the do's and the don'ts of allyship. So there's already, we discussed this, so it's just a way of going through it a little bit. I guess it all starts with active listening. You cannot do any of the others before you have started actively listening. So listening is, and making time is fundamental. Then acknowledge and value differences, which is exactly the contrary of trying, to assimilate everything and to say, well, I'm colorblind and there is no such thing.
I don't see color.
Yes. So then, of course, speaking up, we just mentioned it. We explained ways there we can do this. Educating ourselves continuously is key, also because things change. When you hear these people saying we can't say anything anymore, it has to do with the fact that society has changed, and lots of people are also telling us the new generations do not accept, whatever their gender and color, things that would have been accepted 15 or 20 years ago. So there is, and we hope it stays in that direction, because we also see some possible negative impact of social media on the very young, of course. That's something else. But definitely the educating ourselves continuously is key. Amplifying the voices, that is an interesting one. Sometimes it means also paying a lot of attention in a meeting where just one colleague may be a bit like the minority in the room, and to see if when this person is expressing themselves, they get the attention they need. And if not, there is a way to emphasize and to say, well, I think what Mary just mentioned, we should listen to this. Or Mary, will you explain a bit more what you just started to say before you were interrupted, for instance? That's certainly something important. And also when the person is not in the room anymore. And then reflect on our own biases. It is not because we are allies that all our biases are away. We still have them. They are all there still. And so it's important to be conscious of that and to question our thoughts regularly. So that's, for me, I think it's quite a good list to start with. Maybe we can go to the don'ts as well. And the don'ts, yeah, I don't know if someone wants to talk about the don't tokenize. That's something, it's something sometimes hard, no? I don't know if anyone here in the room would like to share a little bit about that, because it probably happened to several people here in the group to have had the impression of being tokenized. So I just don't know if I'm the best person to talk about it, but it's important, because we may have the best intentions and think, oh, wow, well, obviously, like you, Mukan, as you know, you will be the person at KBC to express really the message of everyone with a different origin. I don't know if you want to share with us how that would make you feel. I'm just taking you out of it.
Luckily, I haven't had yet that kind of remark or that kind of thing within KBC, but I definitely had it at my previous employer, at the Flemish government, where they, after a couple of months, it became very clear that you were like there for the numbers, that you were Black and a woman. It was for Digital Flanders, the agency. It was an agency that was more male, because it was all for IT profiles, and data protection was also were also functions within the IT linked to IT, and I wasn't there for a long time yet when they said, oh, you're going to do a presentation on that day, because we only have all the speakers will be only white and male. And I said, yeah, but what is my contribution from being Black and female to the content of that day? Or or do you want me there just to stand as being to represent like a whole club of Black people, Black female people who aren't here represented? What is your aim to put me on the agenda for a topic that is even not close to the topic that I'm working on? And then they came with questions like, oh, do you feel uncomfortable, or do you feel this or that? I said, no, I'm confident, and I'm also confident about my topic, but my topic is not relevant to that day. So you just want me there that if there are questions, also about sensitive data, what is sensitive data, that it is like sensitive to black people, or what is your aim to put me there? And I couldn't get like a real answer, and I said, yeah, then I will just, you can take my name off the list. I'm not just a person to be listed to have like some kind of variation or diversity at that day, knowing that there is no diversity for that day. You just had to pick like, yeah, a black person, and yeah, that's yeah, it was an environment I would not have survived for a long time.
Thank you so much, Mugan, for sharing. Yeah. And you see, still, the intention is not a bad intention. Huh? The intention is to say, well, we don't want to have only white guys on that panel. That would be awkward. Oh, by the way, there is someone. Maybe that will work. But the fact is, in fact, we should just work much more in advance, like from the beginning, you joining the organization. Well, in what types of domains can you be a contributor? And then would you feel comfortable to join a panel on this theme and so forth, but not any panel just like that. That indeed creates you the feeling that it's not because of your talent that they want you there. It's just to show they are diverse, which is not right indeed. So, Mohammed?
I fully appreciate and understand the position, of course, but I think you have to start somewhere, right? As a company, let's say if I'm struggling. Actually, I have the same discussion with my son who works for the Dutch telecom company, and is a white company. I mean, there's really minimal people from different background, different cultures. Well, I mean, it's difficult for the company. It's difficult for the person itself.
True.
But you need to start somewhere, right? You need to start, okay, we are bringing in people from different backgrounds, from diverse, different colors. And yeah, you need to go through that process of actually the company becoming more diverse. So I think anything you can bring, whether it's indeed a shame or a pity that you are being tokenized, but I think it's also in the interest of the organization, also in your interest, because if you take it positively, you will learn a lot because you are getting into certain discussions, panels, stuff like that. So I always say, I'll take it from the positive side, and instead, because the company needs to start somewhere.
Absolutely, that's true. Axelle?
I do agree. I just wanted to differentiate a bit that if they do it for the right reasons, the intention that you are highlighting, Mohammed, if they do it because they want to attract more diverse talents, absolutely agree. However, if they do it to just give the to keep up the appearance that they are
diverse.
that they are a diverse company, that they want to attract, but actually they don't bat an eye, they don't have any processes, HR processes, any thing to follow up on that, then that is a different thing. And I'm thinking, I know Mukan a bit better, of course, we work for the same company, and I am thinking Mukan's experience, that unfortunately was the case, but that is a very big difference though, because I think very often they use people, they tokenize people to keep up an appearance, while in reality, they don't care. I think a lot of people are, for example, being used for ads and pictures and videos, etc. Like if we look at, I don't watch television, but if you look at the average ad on TV nowadays, I mean, I'm definitely certain that the only thing that they are looking at for an ad is not if they are the perfect fit for that ad. It's just like, how do we present let's say a family so that no one feels left out nowadays, and it has nothing to do with the opinions of the company at that point.
Eddy?
Agree.
Yeah, fully agree. Again, it's really complex, and to me, one possible pitfall in that is we need at least I try to do so to keep the faith that most of the people are willing to do things in the right way. This is important because from time to time, from several experiences we might have with some people, which unfortunately are also a lot, we might consider that this is the norm, which I truly believe it isn't. And again, as you said, Mohamed, but also you, Axelle, you need to start somewhere. You need to start somewhere. I had a discussion with my marketing team. They were building, showing a campaign with several pictures. I saw a white guy on the picture, a black female, an Indian guy, and I was laughing and I was saying, you put me a United Colors of Benetton picture. On that, he was laughing. He was, yeah, but you know, it's important to get today to show. And I said, what do you think about it? Well, personally, I don't care. It's okay, but the willingness is there, and at least pay attention to that. To be tokenized, sometimes it is, from time to time it isn't. And I don't want to take too much time, but to me, I experienced. I thought I was experienced that. Long time ago, again, even though I'm not that old. I've been, again, in the branch world at the bank, BNP Paribas Fortis. I've been asking a lot, trying to show a lot to become a branch manager. When I started there 20 years, that was my purpose, my aim. They proposed it to me. Okay, Eddy, we understood. You worked hard for that, and now you will become a branch manager. You asked for a big branch, a significant branch. Here's your branch. Plus Leeds, Schaerbeek. For those who knows Brussels, for those who doesn't know, it is the worst neighborhood you can find in Brussels. And I had something like mixed feeling. First reaction was, before he said where it will be, great, finally I'm recognized for all that work. And then when it felt the place, I had something like, I didn't say that, but I had something like, you're kidding. So is it because I'm the black guy, you're quite satisfied about his work, but in order to not hear him anymore complaining, I want to be that, you're putting, but in that neighborhood, I'm laughing when I'm telling that, but to me, I was really considering, I'm here to tokenize the story, and then, okay, we have somebody. I've considered that time to quit because I was convinced, almost convinced that it was for that case. Happy after that, and quite fast after that, they were satisfied, and I've been put on a higher level, on the total opposite kind of neighborhood, and I was at the richest place of Brussels. Okay, so at that time I was considering, okay, so it was a fair step from them. I was thinking that I was tokenized there, but that it was a fair step because quite fast after that, it was a question of momentum. They put me on they put me on the part of the organization where they trust me the richest customer of this organization. So my experience on that is we need to be to try to be as much as balanced possible on that.
What I see in large organizations, what is very helpful to avoid tokenize is having internal networks, employee resource groups. They reduce the risk for tokenization because at least you have like this community of colleagues who can support themselves, who can welcome allies in their group as well, and also who have a direct sponsor at executive level, which is super important. So yeah, that's really important. Then, of course, we mentioned don't assume sameness. We discussed that already. If you think, well, I had already 3 discussions with people from that origin, so the 4th one will, of course, be exactly with the same issues. No. And indeed, I've also discovered in some sessions about, for instance, racist microaggressions. I still remember we had this discussion with so many people who sometimes each of them had also their preferred way to address their origin. And to say, for instance, a colleague would mention, personally, I prefer you not referring to me as black, but just, you know, as from this specific origin or so. And yeah, of course, it's difficult. Of course, you cannot know in advance what everyone knows, but by listening to very different people, we understand that it's not necessarily the same for everyone. And then very important, maybe Axelle and myself, and especially myself, because I always talk a lot, we have maybe given the impression that this was all about ourselves. We were like centered into this session, but happily with the testimonials of Mathy, Eddy, and all the others who joined the discussion, we really could share different perspectives. So allyship is not about us. I mean, we do benefit from it. It's not the first reason, but we do benefit from it. We benefit from it because each time we get out of our comfort zone by interacting in an allyship relationship, we also enlarge our comfort zone. We understand better. It's a development of a special type of human intelligence that we are trying to do. So I think that's really interesting. Then the don't minimize experiences. That's, I mean, I know I've done it even to my kids. You know, my kids are mixed color. And when they were coming back from school saying, well, you know, I think the teacher may be racist. Well, as a parent, obviously, you start by saying, first of all, you have to study hard. So are you sure, really? Probably that was not meant like that, and so forth. So, of course, with your kids, you understand that you are doing that, but not minimizing indeed is really important. All the comments like, yeah, but let's focus on what makes us all alike. Yes, I don't see color, or yeah, but or immediately coming with your own story, like, oh, but you know, I've also my own story of having been receiving microaggressions and so on. So it's really important to pay attention to that. Not staying silent in difficult moments. That's quite, the first time is the most difficult, and then it goes easier and easier. And then don't expect gratitude. The gratitude is in the interest of what happens after. If you see the colleague with whom you've tried to be an ally is thriving and is getting next steps and is moving along, that's your reward, in fact. So yeah, that were really the points that we wanted to share for do's and don'ts. And
right,
now,
to be
it's up to you.
conscious of time, I think I will skip the exercise, but I will send the slides as well. And we can maybe go to Axelle's part on micro affirmations.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in this call, we've already touched base a bit on microaggressions and microaffirmations. Microaggressions are a bit more talked about than the microaffirmations. We chose to focus on the microaffirmations because, as Eddy has already said, it is important to highlight the positive things as well. And we can discuss largely what microaggressions are, how they can happen, what effect they have. But there's also a lot of value in discussing the microaffirmations, so the things that you can do in reaction to a microaggression or just regardless of any microaggression, things that you can do to empower people from minorities, marginalized group, even without a situation that needs a response, just how you can empower them, how you can show allyship. Before diving into that a bit more, we see the definition of the microaffirmation shown here. And just like the aggressions, they are words, small actions, and behavior, but then to indicate that you respect that someone, that you appreciate them as a person, as a colleague, as a client, that you embrace differences, etc. So all of the do's and the don'ts are contained in that as well. So moving on, Mathy, to the next slides. So a couple of examples. And if you really look around and are mindful of micro affirmations as much as the microaggressions, you can see that they happen a lot. For example, just before the call, when it was just Claire, Mathy, and myself, Claire gave another example on a micro affirmation that you can do, which is what she's doing right now. Very often we don't meet face to face anymore. It's through some type of team call webinar. And just like the clapping hands on Teams, giving a heart when someone gives a beautiful testimonial, opens up, is vulnerable, shares anything, just shows, as Claire described, that you just show, I hear you, I see you, thank you for sharing, just a moment of appreciation. It can be as small as that, can be as small as the body language, for example, nonverbal, that is being written as well, nodding along when someone is speaking, just a gentle smile when you pass each other in the hallway. But then also the big things, we should not minimalize these either. Actually checking in with people, ask them how they're doing. Also after certain types of conversations they had to have, type of situations they were in. But regardless of those as well, not only if they're looking for opportunities, just on a regular basis as well. To publicly appreciate their work, as it's been said already, talk positively behind their backs, not only to defend their opinions when they're not there, but just, again, regardless of any situation, any opinion that you have to fight as an ally, just talk positively behind someone's back. There's no harm that can be done in that. Recognize their achievements. If there's a silent moment, remember when this or that person did or that brought this to work, something they made for food, when they had a different opinion in some kind of meeting. Just give them their credits, give them their flowers, means a lot. And then indeed invite them along, include other people, inclusive actions. Something I always like to highlight on that topic is, for example, in work meetings, it is a nice show of solidarity to all decide to speak English because there is one non-native speaker, whichever languages it is about, that you collectively decide to speak English. However, meeting is done at 12 o'clock, it is lunch break, and then everyone collectively starts speaking the native language again, completely shuts out the one non-native speaker. And then, you know, there's no more room for bonding, there's no more room for inclusion, etc. So that is also a way of showing, as that is also micro affirmation, showing that they belong. On to the next slide.
I think I will maybe go to the final, the pledge, just for timing.
Yes.
Yes, because what we wanted to share with all of you was that if you did not yet sign the individual multicultural inclusion pledge of Multicultural Network in Finance, well, we would love you to do so, because in fact, the pledge itself is the perfect description of the allyship journey. It's about intentionally diversifying your network. It's about educating yourself. It's about see something, say something. It's about really also addressing with leadership the specific needs that you might have seen and get other allies involved. And so what we wanted to end the session with, maybe that's the previous slide, it's like one specific allyship action that you want to take. And so if you want to share in the chat or even share with the mic what kind of actions you could think about after this session, that would be really lovely.
I just maybe wanted to add one more thing. Besides signing the pledge, if you want to take it even further as an ally, always feel free, of course, to join Multicultural Network in Finance. In one of the work streams, we've got several, they're all on the website, whichever one you feel most comfortable in. We all do very good work. So more than welcome to join us.
Excellent.
Well, the floor to you, Mohammed.
A question on the signing of the pledge. Is it you do that as an individual or as a company? I'm not
You
clear.
will see that there is in fact a double. When you go on the site of Multicultural Network in finance, you see that you can sign the pledge as an individual or as an organization. And it's a bit of a different pledge, of course. The pledge for organizations is with 7 points very clearly, and we have already 12 organizations who did sign. We hope it will grow in the coming months. For individuals, it's more about this allyship journey. So it's of course totally for free, but for us it's a good indication to see that people have signed this pledge. So we really appreciate that.
Thanks, Clem.
Yeah. Anyone else who would like? Yes, Jordi.
Yeah, maybe a very short advertisement also for the mentorship stream. So I'm a co-chair of the mentoring stream. And we are not with that many people. So if there are people interested to join us, you can always reach out to me.
Excellent. Very good idea. Okay, well, it's perfectly 2:30. So we wish you really and a journey on which you will meet important allies to you. And we wish you also to evolve on your own journey.